Oran Doherty. I'm the Regional Skills Forum Manager for the North West. The Regional Skills Forum, it's a Department of Education and Skills initiative to enhance collaboration between industry and education. But before that job, my role was looking after recognition of prior learning and work-based learning at Letterkenny Institute of Technology. So I suppose that role commenced in 2006. I think it was a LEMRA project. I see you know Lanetta here. The purpose of that project was to go around companies in the North West and accredit learning that took place in the workplace with a single subject certificate. So for example, you might go into a company like the hotel here and offer people maybe in reception with a single subject certificate in customer care, communications or IT, and they would provide some evidence that would address the learning outcomes for those particular modules, and we would interview them, and if they were successful they'll get a single subject certificate, and they might do a number of modules that way. And that proved very successful. In the first year, we probably had about 250 people in the Northwest that got learning in the workplace accredited with single subject certificates, pretty much level 6 or level 7 programs. And we kept thinking, what's the next step? And the next step we always thought was work-based learning. You know, I think RPL is great, but you have to bring it to another level. And the next level is establishing a work-based learning partnership with a company, or even better, a group of companies from the same particular sector. So what we would have done was, we would have done with some of the bigger companies, and we said, look, 50 of your staff went through RPL and they have single subject certificates, but there's gaps in what they need to know, and we could develop a program with yous that could be anything from 3 days to 3 years, and we'll develop it and deliver it with yous, and it could be designed around the needs of the company and delivered in the workplace, and RPL significantly contributes to that particular program. And I suppose that's where we started concentrating on was these work-based learning partnerships with either an individual company or a group of companies. So there's a lot of different ideas of what is work-based learning, but in my head, work-based learning is really a partnership between an education body and a company or group of companies, where the learners are already employees, and where the objectives of the program are around the needs of the industry. The program's designed in collaboration with the company, and the education body then, if it's accredited, assesses the learning. So those 5 or 6 components make it a work-based learning partnership. But in recent years, the whole focus in Ireland and indeed Europe, from the Department of Education and bodies alike, is to train up those already in employment as opposed to concentrating too much on those looking for employment. And that's where work-based learning comes in. You know, the big drive is from both an employer perspective and from the education and training body's perspective. If you look at why work-based learning is getting more popular, if you look around the 4 or 5 different circles there, number 1 is probably recruitment and retention issues with industry. Employers know that to recruit and to retain the best employees, they need to provide education and training opportunities, and one way of doing that is through work-based learning. Number 2 is, because we're in a knowledge economy, industries need to upskill now more than ever. And again, work-based learning can be an economic and fast-track way of getting people qualifications. But it's also very important for companies to say that 75% of their staff or 60% of their staff have a 3rd level qualification, and that's what work-based learning can do. They can win new contracts. There's also additional pressure in recent years from government, from education bodies, to put pressure on ETBs and higher education institutes to engage more with industry to develop and deliver work-based learning partnerships, and there's financial incentives for that to happen as well. So the focus on work-based learning is becoming increasingly apparent in recent years. Slightly related to the earlier one is that employees are more ambitious now than ever. They're not just attracted to a new job for money, for financial reasons, but they want to work in a company where there's opportunities to progress in that particular company, and they want to do work-based learning programs like apprenticeship programs, like traineeship programs, but like upskilling programs designed bespoke for a particular company or for a particular sector. And there's also a number of new emerging roles and emerging technologies out there that require training. You know, if you look at, for example, tech's the big disruptor at the moment. Everything's going tech. It's not finance anymore, it's fintech. It's not medical, it's medtech. It's not retailing, it's e-tailing. So all these sectors are being increasingly disrupted by technology, but that means there's an onus on education bodies and training bodies to provide training for existing staff in these new technologies and these new legislations, because we've got a more demanding consumer, I suppose. But work-based learning is extremely challenging for the 3 stakeholders. For the education and training provider, it's extremely challenging because, for example, the power passes from you being the sole provider of the education and training program to sharing that with an employer who might have different notions about what training and education should look like. Probably the biggest challenge is the culture. The difference in culture between education and industry poses a lot of problems for work-based learning programs. For the learner, they're now trying to juggle 3 balls: work, study, and a personal life. So work-based learning is extremely challenging to the learner. Like, most of the literature out there will talk about the challenges for the employer and for the education training provider, but in fact the biggest challenge for work-based learning partnership is the actual learner who's caught in the middle of a college or EDB putting pressure on them, and an employer who wants the same level of performance as they were before. And then, of course, for the employers struggle to get their heads around academic integrity, academic calendars, not getting what they want. Sometimes employers see work-based learning as another business transaction where it needs to be more of a sustainable relationship. So it does challenge all three stakeholders. And for work-based learning partnerships to work, there's a number of prerequisites. The first one is trust, that the education body, training body, need to trust the employer. They need to work together. That relationship needs to happen over a while, and I think that's where RPL comes in. Having engaged with RPL for a number of years, they can bring that relationship on to work-based learning. There needs to be a lot of communications at the start and throughout the programme. RPL is definitely an important component of a good work-based learning partnership. Companies don't want to have to go over the same stuff again. Employees don't want to have to cover the same material again. So RPL from what they already know, and then the gaps, what they don't know, that makes up the work-based learning partnership. It can make it cheaper and quicker to develop the programme then. The education training bodies then need to be extremely flexible. Programmes might be delivered at the weekends, at night time, online. Academic exams need to be held at different times, for example. The academic calendar in particular can be a problem in work-based learning partnerships. But the two cultures of industry and education need to merge. Both need to go more into the centre a wee bit if it's going to work. And that, as I said earlier, that's the single biggest issue in work-based learning partnerships, is the culture. A company has a culture, has a priority of making money, performance. That's their priority. Education have a different one. It's about, I suppose, protecting the learner, academic integrity. So they're quite different in relation to the culture. So merging those two cultures are very different. And I think another prerequisite is having a dedicated person in the education training body whose sole purpose is to manage work-based learning partnership, as opposed to having some guy or some girl who's an hour here, an hour there. That doesn't work. You need a strategically important unit within your organisation to manage work-based learning, and there needs to be a dedicated person put in charge of that. So folks, that's it. I know we'll rush through that very quick, but thanks very much.